Alright, what's up everyone, it's Roku back with more Darius content, and Riot has finally unlocked the practice tool in the PvE, so we can finally get into like explaining these new item reworks and how it pertains to Darius basically, right? Now before we get into the video, I'd like to tell you guys that I'm still sponsored by Razer, so if you want to like support me, go down into the comments or into the description and click the link below, and that's going to help me out a lot. So yeah, let's just get into the video. Now, I'm not going to really break everything down because there's just so many changes that I have to split this into multiple videos, or I'm going to have to make one 1 hour video, which I don't think anybody wants to watch. So I'm going to try to put things into more digestible, sizes. So I'm going to spend this video talking about the very basics of the item changes, and then I'll talk about a few of the notable items for Darius, like breaking down a few of the mythics and maybe some of the legendary items if we have the time. I don't want to take too long with this video because I've learned that making hyper long videos that, that nobody wants to watch is a bad idea. So let's just quickly get right into it. The shop interface has got many major changes, right? So the first thing that's missing is your inventory here. You can no longer interact with your inventory during the shop screen. You have to do it through here. So let's say I have a few items. You have to basically just click on them if you want to sell them and just sell, or you could just right click it like you used to and just sell through here, right? So you interact with your inventory in the shop, but just interacting here. That's one change. Now, they've added a new tab to the to the shop interface, which is this recommended thing. Now, this is it's a bit buggy in the PvE, but what it is supposed to do is that it's supposed to recommend you items based on how the game is looking, right? Let's say you're up against two people who stack tank items. It's gonna recommend you Black Cleaver, or it's just gonna give you let's say they have mages, it's gonna recommend you some MR items, right? So it just recommends you items here and there, which basically makes it very good for lower ranked players who don't know what to build, but for the higher ranked Dariuses who know what the items do, it's not going to be that useful because what I found that in my games, my own my own judgment has served me far better than these recommendations. So yeah, I'm only going to recommend you use this when the patch comes out if you don't know what to do, but if you do know what to do, then try to come up with a build yourself instead of copying this. Two very good additions are these menus for boots and potions, so you no longer have to look for them and etc. This, this interface, this little menu, has all of the potions, health potion, refill, and C-pot. It has all the things with vision, and has all the, the elixirs that you drink at the end of the game when you have no more things to buy. The boots are pretty much identical. The only things that are changed are the icons and the names, I guess, because Riot thought that it was a great idea to change the names of every single item for no reason, right? So that is pretty much the very basics to do with the interface, right? You can still do your leveled item sets. You have this item set button here, so you can still use my item sets, but with the new items, I'm gonna have to rebuild them. So when the new season comes on, I will definitely have many item sets ready to go for people, just so that you guys can have a nice access to all the items. And I will make some videos explaining what the new builds should be, but that's for different videos, obviously, right? So let's check out all the items, right? As you can see, the items are split into different tiers. I don't know why, but Riot put all the starter items at the very bottom instead of the top, which I think is, an elementary design mistake, but it is Riot Games, so we gotta forgive them for being stupid. But yeah, the starter items are at the very bottom, so if you're looking for them, find them here, right? Or you can find some of them here too, but this is better to use. They've basically split up all of the items among classes. So the star is the recommended items. It has all the items that the game thinks is good for you. Fighter is all of the bruiser items, so it's got Cleaver, Sterx, all the nice meaty bruiser items. This is ADC items, assassin items, mage items, tank items, and support items, right? So those are all the items that you have to basically navigate. Those are the menu parts that you have to navigate through, right? And they've split up all the items into these different tiers. So there's basic, which is all of the components, right? all the things that you buy that build into something else. So Longsword builds into everything, so it's a basic component. Then there's epic items, which are built out of basic items. And then there are legendary items, which are our old, you know, complete items, you know. All the complete items are legendary items. And Riot added a new tier of items called the Mythics. Now, Mythic items are quite important and impactful into your gameplay because they not only give you stats, but they also grant you a Mythic passive. What's a Mythic passive? So, Triforce has obviously changed, so we're going to talk about the Triforce changes later in the video, but basically, like, look at the thing text at the bottom. It says Mythic passive, right? Grants all legendaries within attack speed. What does this mean is that, like, every time you buy a legendary item, let's say I buy Black Cleaver, it has no attack speed, but as you guys can see, my attack speed went up as I bought Black Cleaver, right? And that's what a Mythic passive basically does. It gives every single legendary item that you buy an extra stat on top of everything it has. So these items are like built early on so that every single thing that you build gives you even more stats and is even stronger, right? So that's how, like, Riot basically advises that you build items, right? And that's how I think you should do too. Just build a Mythic first and then build the legendary items. Now, one thing's for sure. What they've done with the game is that, like, as a champion, you have a lot of options now, like way more options to build. But this also means that there's not really one build that you have to go into every single match, you know? Builds are a lot less solid and a lot more, like, wishy-washy, so you kind of have to make up your build on the spot if you want to, like, survive in the next season. So I'll definitely come out with, you know, as I said, full builds and, like, you know, what kind of items you can go in different videos in order to, you know, help you guys out. But yeah, this video we're going to talk about our Mythic items, right? So yeah, let's get right into it. Now, basically, if you know your shit, the support items, the mage items obviously, and assassin marksman items are pretty much useless for Darius, right? The only two categories with good items for Darius is fighter and tank. Let's go for our fighter mythics, because if you're going to play that carry sort of Darius, you definitely want to go for these bruiser mythics, right? So let's go for Triforce, which is like basically our old favorite item, you know, gives us every single thing that we need. It gives us AD, HP, attack speed, cooldown, it gives us mana, and we all know that mana is a big issue in Darius, like, because of the mana changes, like they nerf E. And yeah, right, Triforce was everything we needed, right? But not anymore. As you guys can see, Riot removed a lot of stats, and this is like an overall trend that I've noticed, is that, like, a lot of items don't have a lot of stats anymore, right? Like, a lot of items, instead of having like 80 AD, they have like 60 AD. Like, the stats on a lot of items are lower, but on the other side, the passives and the actives of the items are obviously way stronger. Now, let's spawn a dummy, just so that we can, you know, demonstrate the effects of this item. So, as you guys can see, Triforce has still the Spellblade passive, so after we use an ability, you can still get that extra empowered auto attack. And the other passive it has is something called Swift Strikes. Now, this is basically like an extra Conqueror, right? But it only stacks up with abilities, and it only stacks up to 5 auto attacks. Now, bad news is, like, as we've mentioned in previous videos, Darius is not really a champion who can just sit there and auto-attack his target like many times in a team fight. Like, sure, you can do it in a 1v1, but in a team fight setting, this is not going to be that useful because, like, just look at our original combo, our normal combo, right? Like, we did 5 stacks, and it didn't even stack up to 5 because it only counts auto-attacks. So, unfortunately, we can no longer get that much usage out of Triforce because, like, you can use it because it gives it a lot of stats, like a lot of useful stats, but it's just not, like, built for Darius. It's built more so for, like, Jax, Irelia, Camille, the champions who do get the ability to get a lot of auto attacks through in team fights and etc. So, Triforce is not the mythic we're going to be going for. The next item for boozers is called Divine Devour. So, the stats of this item are better than Triforce, except for the fact that it doesn't give any attack speed. Like, it gives us a lot of ability haste, a lot of AD, 400 health, and it still has, like, the Spellblade passive, right? And the Spellblade passive is kind of unique because instead of just doing like 200% of your base AD, it does 8% of the enemy's total HP as the spellblade damage. So it's basically like a miniature Bork, if you kind of get what I mean, right? Like the damage it gives is kind of the same as like the Triforce damage, but it's more so built to work against tanks, right? Because as you can see, it's an anti-tank item, and it's better against tankier opponents. But the thing about Darius is, if you're up against a tanky opponent that you can't kill, you just buy Black Cleaver and you can kill them, right? You don't need this to kill tanks. You need this to kill tanks if you can't kill them already because of your armor pen, right? So Divine Devour is really not Darius's jam. Even though we do heal for the spellblade damage, this item is like even worse for Darius. And the other bad part is it gives us armor pen every time we get a legendary item. Now, I don't know about you guys, but armor pen is not really a stat we want on Darius. You know, we already have enough armor pen, and Cleaver has all the extra armor pen we would need if we even need that, right? At least with Triforce, it gives us attack speed, right? So this is probably the worst item out of the bunch. The next item I'm going to talk about, I'm saving the best for last, is Gore Drinker. Now, you might be noticing that, like, hey, you know, where's Phage? You know, we only have that kind of Phage thing with Triforce, and it doesn't even give us the Phage. As you can see, it only gives you the move speed if you attack someone. It doesn't even give the move speed to you if you kill a minion. I have bad news for you guys. They basically killed Phage for Darius. What they did was that, like, they've changed Phage so that it now only, like, not only, but it heals you once you get into a fight with someone. So once you start hitting someone, it heals you over a period of time, which kind of scales, I mean, not scales, it kind of synergizes with Darius' bleed stacks, but none of these items are built from Phage, and Phage no longer gives us that move speed, which basically means that we lose our favorite early rush item. Now, to make up for the lack of Phage, they've added this item called Kodachi. Now, Kodachi doesn't give any movement speed. When you kill a minion, it only gives the move speed when you hit the minion with an auto attack. So Darius in lane is going to be slightly weaker, and we're going to be a lot more dependent on Ghost to get our kills in lane, because like without the old Phage passive of hitting the minions and walking up to someone, you're going to be kited out even harder than before. So yeah, some lanes are going to be a bit more difficult, right? Which is where Strikebreaker comes in, but we're going to look at that later. Right now we're going to focus on Gore Drinker. Now, Gore Drinker has a lot of great stats, a lot of AD, a lot of HP, and a lot of ability haste. So already right off the bat, this item is amazing. The HP regen is whatever, we don't care, but its active is very, very powerful. So the active is like kind of like Tiamat, right? So you can cast it, and that's like the Tiamat thing. It doesn't have any sound effects right now because it's bugged, but it's just a PvE, right? So what's good about this Gore Drinker is that you can cast it while queuing. Okay, I'll do it again. You can cast it while queuing. So you can basically combo this with your original combo. So E, R, W, Q. And as you guys can see, I did it the wrong way because it does the Gore Drinker in front of you. So you have to be facing the target. Like that, you know? And on top of extra damage, the Gore Drinker, like, what's better about this as opposed to the old Tiamat is that Tiamat basically did a lot of damage at the center of it, but it did no damage at the edges, right? What this Gore Drinker does the full damage at the all areas, so it's good as a damage option. And the crazy part is that it heals for like a certain amount and 12% of your missing HP each champion that you hit. Now, this combined with Q heal can basically heal you up like very, very heavily. Let's just put like 2 people here, just for demonstration purposes, right? 2 champions. I'm gonna teleport here so that we can just get some damage. Fire. Alright, so that's good enough. We'll go back on. So we're gonna do both of them, Q and then Gore Drinker. And that's like our whole HP back from just 2 people. Imagine if you hit 3 people. And Gore Drinker does not have a limit to how many champions you can hit, right? So this is a very good item. And Aggression, the passive it has for giving you like 15% extra AD per 5% missing HP, is a very, very welcome addition. Now, the other part of it, the Mythic passive, is also very powerful because it gives us even more like cooldown reduction, right? So 5 cooldown reduction per legendary item that we get. So Gore Drinker is a very, very powerful option, but it's only good for champions who already have mobility, right? Because this does not have Phage, and it doesn't give any kind of mobility. So Darius is just really slow with Gore Drinker, right? Which, like, the basic explanation that I have is Gore Drinker only makes Darius strong in situations where he would already be strong, you know? It doesn't cover up your weaknesses. Situations where you would be strong, you're even stronger. You heal more, you deal more damage, so Gore Drinker is that kind of item, you know? But it does not help you when you're weak, which is where this new item comes in, Strikebreaker. This is probably the sole reason why I'm having so much fun with PvE, right? Strikebreaker is basically like a proto-build dash. Like, I'll just show you guys the interface. It's like a dash, and then it does that same thing that Gore Breaker did, the Tiamat thing, right? So I'll just demonstrate it. So dash, and it does the hit, right? And you can do quick cast, so it's faster. And yes, you can do it in the middle of Q. So let's say you're not like reaching someone with your Q, Gore Drinker, and then hit them with the Q. And if you aim it right, you can also kill them, hit them with the Strikebreaker. What's great about Strikebreaker is that everybody who's in that zone, like this zone, is slowed by 60% for 2 seconds. So if you're up against like a ranged champion who's out of your vision, out of your like, you know, reach for E, you can just do like Strikebreaker, and now they're slowed, so you can just like Strikebreaker, walk up, and then pull them, right? So mastering the usage of this, you know, item, it can make you very powerful, you know? Like, you can use it in the middle of Q. Let's say you're fighting someone, but they're outplaying you, they're inside of your Q, you can just, you know, Strikebreaker back. There's so much you can do with this item. Like, it's one of the items that make it so that the high-skilled Darius players can shine, because they'll know exactly where Darius needs mobility, and they'll use this item properly. So this item can be used for many things, just, you know, backing from the ganks. If you want to just run from someone, just go slow them and run away. You know, there's so much you can do with this item, so I think that Strikebreaker is the go-to item. The stats on it, like, it gives more AD than other items, which, you know, Darius could use more tankiness, but, you know, more AD is appreciated. And what's even better about Strikebreaker is that it gives Darius every single thing he needs. And yes, it also gives us the old Phage passive. So Strikebreaker is the only item in the game with old Phage passive of when you kill a minion, you get 60 movement speed. So you can just kill a minion in lane and walk up to someone, Strikebreaker E, so you have like very long range in lane to just catch up to people and those disgusting range top laners, right? Strikebreaker gives us every single thing we need. AD, health, attack speed, a bit of ability haste, and the mythic passive it gives is movement speed. Darius loves movement speed, right? So, you know, let's get like a full build. Let me just like, you know, wait out the home guard or whatever this thing is. And as you guys can see, it's like, it's not much, but it is considerable because like Triforce only gave us 5% movement speed. And for my Triforce homies who had to build Cleaver for some games, you know that that 5% can make a difference. So yeah. Strikebreaker is the go-to item, and it's honestly just such a great item because Darius having this kind of item allows for him to have a lot of outplay potential, right? In terms of like the tank mythics, you're only going to be looking at, let me just pull that accidentally. You're going to be only wanting to look at this, the Phosphor Gauntlet, which is basically a newer version of Iceborne, and the Berserker Suit, which is just Righteous Glory, but you know, Riot Games and renaming everything, you know, so yeah. So, Phosphor Gauntlet, I made a video about this, but it's basically old Righteous Glory. And if you're going for like, you know, Phosphor Gauntlet, you're gonna be tanky as fuck, right? And you're basically building the tank Darius build instead of like a damage Darius build. And because of how hard tank items scale, you can pretty much legitimately play tank Darius like I did in my other video, where if you get fed, you can tank up very hard and be mostly unkillable against teams unless they're, you know, also fed and they have Eclipse and they just one-shot you, right? So I kind of like this item. It's not like the best item. Like for certain, it's not the best item for Darius. It doesn't synergize too well with him. But like in terms of the tank items, it is very good for him, right? So if you're up against the heavy AD team, this is the go-to. Now, this is the best tank mythic, and it's probably like, aside from Strikebreaker and Gore Drinker, this is the third, or even it's like competes with Gore Drinker for being a great like tank item for Darius, or like the best mythic for Darius. So this gives us a lot of magic resist, right? And trust me when I say that like Riot has kind of fucked the game, where like MR options are kind of like they're strong, but they're not as strong as they used to be, right? They added this one MR option called Force of Nature, but like, you know, they've just straight up nerfed Spirit Visage, and Adaptive Helm is nowhere to be seen. So, Berserker Suit is basically just old Righteous Glory, but it gives us magic resistance instead of armor, right? You just press it, you just walk up to people, and you slow them. I don't know what they did with the interface, because like the area that it slows in is kind of really hard to see. I hope they fix that. But the area in which it slows is kind of smaller, but it still helps you catch people, right? So if you want to be like a tank Darius and want to be very, very active early game, then this is the go-to item, because you just shove lane and you can run up to mid lane, run to jungle, and just straight up run to people and kill them or catch them for your team to kill them together, even if like you don't have your summoner spells. So this is definitely a great item. And what's even better about it is the Mythic passive. It gives us 5% tenacity and slow resist for every single legendary item that we buy. So Berserker Suit is quite good if you're going for a tanky Darius, because you're going to be pretty much unstoppable. And if you're going tanky Darius, you're going to take a lot of damage. So, I don't know, this item is a godsend, to be honest, and it makes tank Darius a lot more playable. Instead of just before where, like, you know, I don't know, tank Darius just made you like a minion, whereas now, like, tank Darius is quite strong. And it's like a viable alternative to going full damage Darius, right? But, you know, Strikebreaker and the skill it provides does make, like, the skill, you know, damage Darius a lot more attractive. Now, before we end the video, I'm going to talk about a few of the most viable options for Darius in terms of the legendary items. Now, I know we're going over, like, the amount of time I've given myself, but I have to cover these to give the basic idea to you guys, right? So, first off, most of these items are not for Darius, but I'll go for the ones that are for Darius. Kempuck Chainsword. Now, this is basically anti-heal for bruisers. So, have you ever ran into situations where you're up against Vladimir in lane, but, like, so you have to get executioners, but you have nothing to build it into, and some Darius players build it into fucking Mortal Reminder, which is really bad, right? So yeah, Kempuck Chainsword basically allows for bruisers to build that executioners into an item that works for them. So it's a great item, right? The next great item that they added is these Silver Weave leg plates. Now, this item is basically the same as this, but for QSS, right? So you're up against Malzahar, you're up against Warwick, Mordekaiser, you no longer have to build it into a Mercurius Scimitar. That item sucked for Darius. Now you can actually build it into something that's good for bruisers. So yeah, that's a great item. Now, all these items are pretty much useless. GA is great, but if you're going for a build that has a lot of HP, it's not too good because it only gives you your base HP back, right? So now we get to, like, the 3 useful items. Ravenous Hydra and Titanic Hydra are kind of useless right now. They removed the extra auto attack cancel from Titanic Hydra, so, you know, that was the only reason we built the damn thing, and then they just removed it, so there's no more point in building Titanic Hydra. Ravenous Hydra, they made an interesting thing where if you hit someone with your abilities, the Ravenous Hydra thing is back, but, like, there's no active, and, you know, it doesn't do any extra damage to one specific target. So, like, this item is for, like, Aatrox or Renekton and not for Darius. Now we come to our 3 beautiful items. First off, Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver is less of a main item and more of a supporting item. If you're going for a full damage build, you don't want to go for Black Cleaver, because Black Cleaver basically relies on you surviving long enough to shred someone, and for your enemy to survive long enough for you to shred them. Right? If you're going for a damage Darius build, you're going to be one-shotting people with your normal combo. But Black Cleaver is so good if you're going for a tank Darius build. So let's say you built Berserker Suit or Phosphor Gauntlet. Then you pair it up with Black Cleaver, and the amount of extra damage that it does, like the new passive they gave it, it's all pretty much the same, but it has this new passive called Carve. And once you fully shred someone, so like you know the shred thing where, like, they reduce their armor every time you hit them, right? So once you fully shred someone, they now take extra damage every single time you know, deal damage to them, right? And the amount of damage that they take is based off of their, you know, missing HP. So the amount of damage that this does, you know, piles up over time, you know? So in a full all-in, this item does a lot of damage. So if you're going for a tank Darius build where you're not even going to be one-shotting people, where you're just going to be out-surviving them, Cleaver is a very, very, very good you know, combination with tank Darius, right? Another great change that they've done is to Death Stance. Now, my personal problem with Death Stance before was that, like, it took a percentage of the damage it dealt and dealt it as a bleed. I mean, damage you took and it dealt it to you as a bleed. Now this makes you like kind of tanky and it stopped burst. But the part about it that I disliked was every time like I was on low HP and I'm trying to make plays with my Q, I would die because like though the damage is like dealt as a bleed and it looks like the damage is not there, it's still there. So like it showed your health as, oh, you were okay, but the damage was still on its way to you, right? It was just slowed. So every time you killed someone or you were ready to kill their whole team, like you would just bleed out and die because of this item. Now what they've done with this item is amazing. So it has a new passive called Defy, and all of the damage you took that's currently being dealt to you as a bleed, every time you get a kill, all the damage is now gone. It no longer comes in, which is very, very useful for Darius. And on top of all that, you get 30% move speed, and you heal HP over the duration, you know, over 2 seconds. You know, for 2 seconds you get move speed and you heal up, right? Now, Death Stance works very, very well with Darius' current build, you know, with the ghost movement speed, with like how you do takedowns. Death Stance is a crazy item for Darius, and if you can get it after the Strikebreaker, or if you're fed and you can get it like third item, fourth item, it can be very, very good for you, as you can just keep mopping up teams over and over again. So like the healing from your Q, Triumph heal, and the Death Stance heal, like once you take one person down, you're going to be unstoppable and you're going to be killing everyone. So Death Stance is very, very powerful. But it has to come with a weakness. And the weakness is you're now very weak against AP champions, because the passive Ignore Pain, which is like, you know, the thing that it takes 35% of damage and deals as bleed, now only works against physical damage. So it's only good against heavy AD compositions, and if they have a fed mage, then you can't really go for Death Stance, you know. So that's what I meant earlier by, you know, magic users options are kind of fucked. The last item I'm going to be going over is my favorite item in the game, Sterx Gage. Now, thank God that they did not completely fuck Sterx Gage and they made it still a very strong item, because I love this item, right? Now, what they've changed with Sterx Gage is that, like, you no longer get the percentage of your base AD as bonus AD, right? So that is gone from the Sterx Gage item, so it's no longer a second buy. It's a very, very powerful third buy, but you just don't need to rush as quickly anymore. But they basically made this item so much stronger in teamfights, right? So, as you guys saw, or some of you might have noted, it builds out of Phage, right? And it has that Phage item multiplied by, like, basically a large portion. So, it has this passive called Rage, and Rage stacks on Sterx Gage in this kind of weird way, but I'll try to explain it to you. So, let's say you're fighting one champion, right? When you deal damage to them, or they deal damage to you, you get 1 stack of Rage. And you can get only 1 stack of range from this one champion once per 6 seconds. So this item is not so good in 1v1s. But in team fights, let's say you're fighting 3 people. Every time you hit one of these 3 people, or one of them hit you, you get 1 additional stack of rage, right? So you can get 1 stack from each person every 6 seconds, but because there's 3 people, 3 different people who you hit or they hit you, you get 3 stacks of rage. So you can understand how if you're in a big team fight and everyone's focusing you down, Sterx is going to come in, baby, and it's going to save your ass, because those rage stacks are important. Now, what rage does on its own is that it gives you a certain amount of HP, it scales with your health, and it heals that to you over 6 seconds, right? So 1 stack healing is not really that much. I think your base HP regen is like almost as much as that, but if you stack it up to 5 times, you're going to get around like 30, 40, or 50 like HP regen every second, which is kind of crazy in my opinion, because like that's the amount of HP regen that Set has when he's low HP, and you know how hard he used to kill. Like, you guys just focus him down and he gets away and he's at 1 HP and he heals up to like 300 health from like 0 health because of the HP regen. Now you get that too with Sterx Gage. What's even better is what they've done with Lifeline. Now what they've removed is that Lifeline used to give us tenacity and a bigger size, but now it no longer gives that. And in return, they've kind of changed how the shield mechanic works, and it's better in my opinion. So, before, you would get the Sterx shield if you just took a bunch of damage, right? Regardless of your HP. But now you only get the Sterx shield if you're below 30% HP. This is amazing. How many times have you run into a situation where you're fighting someone, and they do a big burst of damage to you, and you get the Sterx shield, but you're like full HP anyway, so you don't need that shield, but you get it anyway, and your Sterx is wasted. Not anymore. Now, you only get the shield when you need it, at 30% HP, which is great, right? the shield is 200 base, and it's like a certain amount per stack of rage, and now it's only 140 because I have no additional HP items. But if you build like, you know, let's say, you know, your normal build, that Cleaver, whatever, it's gonna be closer to like 200, right? So it's gonna be 200 shield per stack of rage. Now, you're fighting 1v1, it's only 400 shield, right? Which is good, but it's not amazing. But if you're starting in like a team fight, and everybody hits you, and you have big rage stacks, like, then it's gonna be like 1,200 shield. That much shield in a big team fight, that's gonna be a game changer. And what's even better about it is that the shield does not decay. Now, some people know this, but I know I love Sterx a lot, but the main thing that I don't quite like, it just makes me cringe a bit, is that, like, basically, when you proc the Sterx shield in the current game, it only stays for, like, I think 0.75 seconds, and then it decays. So, it only helps against burst, and once that decaying starts, then you kind of lose the shield. So, people can either just hit you and destroy the shield, or they can just wait it out. But now, you get the full shield for the full duration, which is 8 seconds. So no matter what you do, you still keep that shield for 8 seconds, right? Let me just show it to you, right? Starting damage, or fire. So as you can see, I'm keeping the shield. It's not decaying, right? I did get bigger with size, but it does not give us tenacity, so that's like the important part that we lack, right? So yeah, I guess that was just the shield, you know, effects. I got confused, but yeah. So Sterx Gage is less strong in 1v1s, but it's incredibly powerful in team fights, right? So Sterx Gage is a must item, and what's great about it is that the amount of HP in it scales with like the amount of HP you built totally. So if you're going for a full tank build, going for Cleaver and Sterx with a full tank build, let's say you've built like this, Sterx, Cleaver, and then you go for more tank items, let's say this, Randuin's and Deadman's, and you have like boots, and the amount of shield it gives increases with the amount of HP you have, right? And you're going to be doing more damage because you survive a lot more. So like, you know, tank Darius is going to be very, very fun and viable now, and a very, very strong option if you're going against teams who are going to be blowing you up a lot. So if you're a player who like, man, I love the new items, but I just keep getting one shot, you can just go for the tank build, and that's going to be fine for the most part, because you're going to just keep doing like a decent amount of damage where you're going to be incredibly tanky. And as you guys saw in that last video, I had like 500 AD with this exact build that I showed you guys, right? Not at the exact build, but like a similar build. So the tank Darius is going to be making a big comeback, along with the damage Darius with Strikebreaker, right? So yeah, that is pretty much it. I wanted to go into the tank legendaries too, but they've removed this really sick tank legendary called Force of Nature. I'll put an image of what it does on the screen, but basically it gave you like movement speed and ability, and magic resist every time you got hit by an ability in a team fight, which is like very, very useful because like as the team fight went on, you would get stronger and stronger and stronger, right? So it's no longer here. Like it was called Force of Nature, but it's just not here anymore. So I think Riot removed it for some testing or something. I don't know, but yeah. Next video or some videos later, I'm going to go into tank items and start recommending you guys full builds. But I think we're done with this video pretty much. I've gone through the common Darius items and all the useful mythics and all of the basics for you guys. So yeah, that is going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and it was useful, and keep up to date on my channel. Subscribe, like, or just stay on the channel, because like I'm gonna be making a lot of content with these new PvE items, because I really want to like try to help like Darius players, you know, find what the exact meta for Darius is. Like I want to play a decent role in this, and I'm going to be trying my hardest to find what the best items for Darius are in the coming weeks. So yeah, I'm going to be making sure that you guys are able to crush Season 11 right out of the gate. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I've said so yeah 50 times already. So yeah. Alright, I'll just end the video. Peace out.